Okay, so I'm going to do one piece of cleanup, and that's that right now when I look in my outliner, I've got these two things, and neither one of them is nested inside a group node. And that, to my eye, looks really messy. So I'm going to have one group node here that I'm going to call my skeleton group. I'm going to make sure that my skeleton group is on a skeleton layer. Now, I know that that looks silly because our skeleton is entirely one piece. Sometimes it isn't, in which case you'll want to have a nice group node to hold all of your joint chains. I'm going to do the same thing for the geometry, which again is really silly, but again, most times when you're dealing with a character, it isn't all one piece. You've got eyeballs that are separate, you've got like teeth that are separate, maybe your ears are separate or your tail, but it's a good thing to have a geometry group and a skeleton group. So having done that, the next thing that I want to talk about is the function of joints. When I look at these joints, I've been rotating them. And the reason that I've been rotating them is mostly that their rotation is really clean. So with rotation, I can take them and I can just zero that right out. And that's going to be true for all of the joints. This joint right here, if I zero this out, that resets. The other nice thing about rotation is that rotation maintains the mass of the model. So anytime I am rotating this, you can see that the mass of the model is not changing. It still looks like it's about the same shape as it did before. Joints are rotational by default. They want to rotate. Rotate is great, that's why we rotate and then we have a separate orient so that rotation can be nice and clean. Joints are not meant to translate. When I translate, I change the mass of the model, and I also lose the joint's relative position information. So here I can see that this joint does not believe that it is at the origin. It believes that it is offset 0.447 units from the previous joint along the x-axis, and anytime I move it, I change that relationship. So translate is bad. Scale is right out. Nobody scales joints. So this rotate thing is the basic function of a joint, and what it is called is forward kinematic. So let's just pull up my blue pencil and we'll write FK here. FK, forward kinematic. And what FK means is that each joint rotates the other joints in the chain, like so. So this joint, when it rotates, it takes the other joints in the chain with it, so on and so forth. Each joint will rotate its children. Rotation is nice and clean. The other type of motion that I've got is inverse kinematic. So IK for inverse kinematic. And what inverse kinematic does is it creates a loop that goes in the other direction. Forward kinematic is rotational by default. ROT for rotation. IK is translational. Now, I've said all of these things in a very abstract way because I just want you to kind of see this diagram that forward kinematic motion moves 1, 2, 3 in order from the top of the hierarchy down to the bottom of the hierarchy. That's forward kinematic. Inverse kinematic is willing to skip a few steps to go from the top down, from the bottom up to the top. Boy, terminology is really hard. So let's take a look at this in action. I'm going to work here in my perspective view, and what I'm going to do is in the skeleton menu, I'm going to go to the Create IK Handle tool. I'm going to click on this wrist joint that I told you we were going to ignore, and then I'm going to go up to my clavicle joint. That creates this new object called an IK handle, and with the IK handle, as I move it, you can see that all of the joints in the chain are rotating to compensate for my translation. So I'm definitely using the Move tool. And as I use the Move tool, the rest of the joints will rotate to respect what I'm doing with my translation. So the fun thing is that I am moving from the tip up to the shoulder. Well, in this case, up to the clavicle. Boy, I really chose the wrong bind method. I don't know what it was, but it really is wrong. So inverse kinematic takes a number of joints and uses translation to drive rotation. I think I'm going to delete that one. Let's make a different IK handle. And in this case, I will just go from the wrist to the shoulder, and maybe that'll be a little better. A little less disturbing. A little less disturbing. I like that. That's okay. So what I'm going to do, or what I'm going to ask you to do, is to start making some IK handles. To make IK handles, you're going to click on the last joint that you want to move, like this one, the ankle, and then on the first joint, like this one, this is the hip, and then test them out and see what you like. When you've got an IK handle that you like, name it. It's really important to name things so you're not left with IK handle 1, IK handle 2. This one is the left ankle IK handle. This one is the left shoulder IK. Nope, this is the left wrist. I started at the wrist. Left wrist IK handle. You're going to need one for each limb, so you'll have 4 total, and I think that they should be symmetric. So when you find the joints that you want to use, you use them on both sides. IK handles can contain as many joints as you want. They can go from one joint to the next joint, or they can go from one joint, skip one, do the next one. You could do the entire leg from the hip to the toe. I prefer hip to ankle. See what you like. Sometimes I'll do wrist all the way to clavicle, sometimes I'll do wrist to shoulder. So again, test them out, see what you like, but you're going to need 4 of them. So I'll do this one. This is my right ankle IK handle. Naming convention, I like naming them after the final joint in the chain. We'll do one more and I'll go wrist. Looks like I'm going shoulder with this one. So that'll be my right wrist IK handle. When you've got them all, test them out, use your Move tool and just see the way that they move. Don't go too far because IK handles also use local positioning information. So try not to go too crazy, but get 4 of them, get them all named. That'll be my right wrist IK handle. And when you're done, get them inside a group node. This will be your IK handle group. And then come join me in the next video where we start making controls for these things so that we don't have to worry about them losing their relative position information, which again would be bad. So take some time, practice making IK handles. Think about it this way. Your joints are rotational. So joints are meant to rotate, and as you build the biped skeleton, you're thinking about the places you might want it to rotate. IK handles are translational. They're meant to drive rotation from the end, so you put them places where you think you need a handy shortcut for a bunch of joints. I'm not going to use them for the spine. I think spines should always be rotational. But any place where you think you're going to want a shortcut, you put in an IK handle and just test it out and see what happens. IK handles are fairly forgiving. They're really nice. They're super easy to delete. You just select them and delete them, and then you make a new one. All you have to do to make them is click on 2 joints, so they're pretty easy in that respect too. So I want you to practice by making 1 IK handle for each limb. Leave the spine alone. And when you're ready, come join me and we will make them safer for people to use.